The airport staff had no idea what they were in for when they kicked out Shakille O'Neal. But once her father, the legendary Shaquille O'Neal, showed up, they regretted it deeply. It was a bright, cloudless morning in Los Angeles, with the sky hanging clear over LAX, the bustling hub where travelers hurried from one terminal to the next, dragging wheeled suitcases and sipping their coffee cups. Among them, 17-year-old Shakille O'Neal, known by her friends for her towering height and purposeful stride, stepped out of a sleek black SUV. She was dressed simply in track pants, a hoodie, and sneakers, but there was a quiet confidence about her that spoke volumes. It was a confidence she had inherited from her famous father, Shaquille O'Neal, though very few people recognized her at first glance. Especially with the crowds hustling through the terminal, it was easy to blend in unnoticed. Shakille was heading to a youth basketball camp in Chicago, eager to refine her skills and prove to herself and the world that she wasn't just Shaq's daughter. She was determined to earn respect on her own, to stand on her own terms. And despite a wave of nerves, she kept her composure, clutching her ticket and passport tightly as she walked into the terminal. To her relief, there was only a short line at the check-in counter. A bored-looking clerk named Tina stood behind the desk, glancing at her watch. Shakille approached, sliding her documents over. Tina barely looked at them before her eyes shot to Shakille's tall frame and casual clothes. "Where to?" Tina asked, her voice flat. "Chicago," Shakille answered quietly, her face calm, showing no sign of the tension she felt. "Just one bag to check," Tina continued. Shakille nodded. Tina rolled her eyes, scanning the ticket suspiciously. "This is a business-class seat," she remarked dryly. "Yes, that's correct," Shakille replied, trying not to let the tone unsettle her. Tina's lips tightened. "You're sure about that?" She raised her eyebrows, her gaze scanning Shakille from head to toe. "These tickets are expensive, you know." Shakille's posture stiffened, but she forced a polite smile. "I know, it's mine." Tina blinked, unamused. "We can't just let anyone claim business class. I'll need to see some ID." Shakille handed over her driver's license, without saying a word. Tina studied it too long for comfort before exhaling. "Fine. I guess it checks out." She shoved the boarding pass across the counter. "Gate C22, boarding in an hour." Shakille's cheeks flushed with embarrassment, but she bit her lip and tried to brush it off. She had learned to keep calm in the face of unnecessary challenges. With her luggage checked, she moved toward security. But that was just the beginning. At security, the usual airport chaos filled the air. Families with strollers, business travelers buried in their phones, everyone rushing to get through. Shakille placed her backpack in the bin, ready to breeze through. But halfway through the scanner, a TSA officer barked, "Ma'am, step aside. We need additional screening." Shakille frowned, stepping aside politely. "Is something wrong?" "Just a random check," the agent replied, but there was doubt in his eyes. He waved over another agent, who began rummaging through her bag. They pulled out her sneakers, a rolled-up jersey, some notebooks, and basketball gear. "One-way trip to Chicago for basketball?" the agent asked, smirking slightly. "That's right," Shakille said quietly, trying not to let the annoyance seep into her voice. The agent nodded, his face still unreadable. "Next time, consider arriving earlier. This might take a while." Shakille's chest tightened with frustration, but she folded her arms and waited, enduring the extra hassle. 20 minutes later, after they had unpacked everything and swiped for explosives, she was allowed to go. There was no clear reason for the delay, but she kept it to herself. She bit back the urge to ask if they always singled out teenagers with big frames. As she neared her gate, her phone buzzed with a text from her father, Shaquille. "How's it going, baby girl? Need anything?" She quickly typed back, "All good, Dad. Thanks." No sense in worrying him. She was determined to handle this on her own. But, of course, the trouble wasn't over yet. As Shakille approached gate C22, a cluster of airline staff was waiting. Among them was a man in a blazer with a name tag reading Charles, supervisor. He stared at her as she walked up, then strode forward with his arms crossed. "Excuse me, miss," he said curtly. "We've received information that your seat may have been issued incorrectly. Could I see your boarding pass again?" Mahira extended it, her frustration barely contained. Charles studied it for a moment, his brow furrowed. "Business class? That's unusual for someone your age," he remarked. His eyes flicked pointedly to her casual outfit. "You're traveling alone?" She forced herself to sound calm. "Yes, alone. My father got the ticket for me." She hesitated, not wanting to name-drop her dad, but feeling cornered. Charles shrugged dismissively. "Well, the system flagged it. We can't let you board until we verify the payment details." "What do you mean, flagged it?" Mahira asked, her voice rising slightly. "I paid for it. I have the confirmation email right here on my phone." Charles held up his hand, cutting her off. "We need more than your word." Turning to an agent behind him, Charles muttered, "Let's take her to the side." The agent nodded, gesturing for Mahira to follow them. Her pulse raced, and she couldn't believe this was happening. She wanted to scream, but she kept her cool, cursing under her breath. They led her away from the main boarding area to a small nook by a closed coffee kiosk. Charles demanded to see her credit card, the phone with her flight info, and matching ID. Reluctantly, Mahira handed everything over, her face burning with embarrassment. Passers-by glanced curiously at her as she displayed the information. Charles studied the details with a narrowing gaze. "Who's the cardholder?" asked O'Neal. Mahira replied, her voice steady despite the situation. Charles blinked, then sneered. "Oh, so you're claiming you're Shaq's daughter?" His tone dripped with disbelief. "Nice try." Mahira was stunned. "I'm not claiming anything. It's the truth." Charles smirked, clearly not convinced, and Mahira knew this wasn't over yet. Mahira was left stunned, her jaw dropping as Charles, the supervisor, coldly stated, "We can't accept this. I'll have to void your ticket." "You can't do that. I have a valid reservation." Mahira protested, her voice trembling with disbelief. Charles simply smirked and shrugged. "We have the right to deny boarding if we suspect fraud. That's our policy." Mahira felt the sting of his words, each one cutting deeper. He motioned to the agent. "Escort her out. If it's a real ticket, let the Real cardholder come here himself to fix it." That was the final blow. The agent took Mahira's arm, guiding her out of the terminal with unnecessary force. Her eyes stung with tears of humiliation as she was escorted out, her heart pounding in her chest. Frantic, Mahira pulled out her phone. Her father had told her to call if anything went wrong. It was time to make that call. She dialed, praying he would answer. "Dad, her voice cracked. "They're kicking me out of the airport. They think my ticket is fake. They won't let me board." On the other end, Shaquille O'Neal's deep, resonant voice filled with immediate concern.
"What?"
"I'm on my way, baby. Stay right there." Mahira exhaled in relief, but couldn't stop the tears from threatening to spill. "They're forcing me out to the curb, near baggage claim," she managed to whisper, glancing at the agent who glared at her, signaling she had to move along. "Please hurry," Mahira added urgently. The staff ignored her pleas as they escorted her out of the secure area, dragging her to a side exit that led to the arrival section. Passers-by stopped and stared, some filming with their phones, unsure of what was going on. They finally stopped at the sliding doors, confiscating her boarding pass. Mahira felt every ounce of her dignity slip away. She turned away, refusing to let them see her cry. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she didn't care. She quickly texted her father her location, hoping he'd arrive before things got worse. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, a black SUV screeched to a halt at the curb. A tall figure stepped out, his presence undeniable. It was Shaquille O'Neal, wearing a casual tracksuit but radiating an aura of power. Heads turned. A buzz rippled through the crowd. Shaq spotted his daughter, striding over with purpose, towering over the staff. "Ma, you okay?" he asked softly, his giant hand resting on her shoulder. Tears welled up again, but this time from relief. She nodded, hugging him tightly. Shaquille turned to face the staff, his anger palpable in the air. Someone want to explain why you're throwing my daughter out? Charles, trying to keep his composure, stepped forward. Sir, we had reason to believe her ticket was purchased fraudulently. She claimed you were her father. Shaquille's eyebrows shot up in disbelief. Claimed? He looked from Charles to the other staff, then back to Mahira, whose cheeks were flushed with embarrassment. She told you who I am, and you still call her a liar? Charles stammered. We just have these policies. We need verification. Shaquille raised a massive hand, silencing him. Verification, huh? More like you harassed and humiliated her for no reason. He stared down at them, frustration lacing every word. You could have checked my contact info with one phone call. Instead, you kicked her out. That's how you treat passengers. The agent started to speak, but Shaquille's powerful voice cut through. The right to discriminate? The right to call a young black woman a liar because you don't believe she can afford business class? My name is on that ticket. You want proof? You have it now. So let's handle this properly. A crowd had gathered, phones raised to capture the tense scene. One by one, the staff members realized they'd made a huge mistake. Shaquille's reputation as a kind but firm figure preceded him, and they were starting to grasp the full weight of their error. Charles, attempting a weak apology, stammered, "We're sorry for the inconvenience, Mr. O'Neal. Please step inside, and we'll sort it out." Shaquille folded his arms, towering over them. "Not so fast. My daughter's flight is soon. We need her boarding pass back and a real apology. Then we'll see how we proceed." Charles turned a deep shade of red and quickly produced the confiscated pass. "Of course, sir. We're so sorry. We'll escort her to the gate. No more trouble." Shaquille took the pass and handed it to Mahira, his voice low but firm. "Apologize to her directly, not me." Charles turned to Mahira, his face reading as awkward and regretful. "I'm sorry, Miss O'Neal. We misunderstood." Mahira pressed her lips tight, nodding slightly. She wasn't ready to forgive them yet, but she didn't want to make it worse either. Shaquille guided her inside, ignoring the stares. Mahira stuck close to him, a mix of relief and lingering humiliation flooding her chest. The staff scrambled, leading them to a special service desk where a senior manager greeted them with profuse apologies. They quickly reissued her boarding pass, confirmed her seat, and insisted they escort her through expedited security. Meanwhile, passengers in the terminal recognized Shaquille and began snapping photos, though no one dared approach for an autograph in the tense atmosphere. Mahira glanced at her father, giving him a grateful look. "I'm sorry," she murmured. "I wanted to handle it alone." Shaquille's big hand squeezed her shoulder gently. "You did your best, baby girl. This was their mistake, not yours. Don't apologize for that." At the gate, staff practically tripped over themselves offering free upgrades or lounge passes. Shaquille waved them off, making it clear that what they really needed to offer was an apology for the disrespect. The manager stammered out one last regretful apology. "We assure you, Miss O'Neal, we'll investigate the incident thoroughly." Mahira sighed, tired of the whole ordeal. "I appreciate it. Just treat people better." That was all she wanted, for no one else to go through this. Before she boarded, Shaquille pulled her into a brief hug. "Text me the moment you land, okay? Don't let this overshadow your camp. Show them your skills." Mahira nodded, her tears threatening again, but now from gratitude. "Thanks, Dad," she whispered. "I'll make you proud." Stepping onto the plane, Mahira inhaled deeply, her shoulders finally relaxing. She found her seat, trying to ignore the curious stares of other passengers. Slowly, her heart began to settle. She was on her way to chase her basketball dreams, despite everything that had happened. Yes, the memory stung, but it wouldn't define her. Shaquille O'Neal, the man who had once stood 7 feet tall, dominating NBA courts, had arrived to defend his daughter. In doing so, he had reminded the world that no one should be judged by appearances, and no one should be doubted for occupying space they had earned. At the camp, Mahira nailed every drill, surprising coaches with her skill. If any tension from the airport incident lingered, she channeled it into each jump shot, each layup. In fact, the adversity only sharpened her resolve. During the camp's final scrimmage, she played with such intensity that she earned a standing ovation from the coaches. That night, she texted her dad, "Today was great. We did it." His reply came almost immediately, "Proud of you, baby." Hashtag bigger than basketball. Yes, bigger than basketball. Bigger than prejudice or assumptions. And Mahira had carried that lesson forward, determined never to let anyone doubt her place in the world again.